If you want to set up a client for an Imperial environment, or you want to start working on Imperial projects, there are a few steps you have to go through. So first of all, what you would have to do, copy your existing client folder. Rename that client folder, for example, client 2026 IMP. And the other one, the original one, I'll call it MET for metric. That client then has to be activated. We can pick it up from here. So we want the Imperial. After that, we would set the project folder. I would highly recommend separating metric from Imperial project since they're not 100% compatible. Let's say it like this. So I'll make my folder projects 2026I for Imperial. Apply. Is this correct? Yes. And the final step would be that we are going to work in a US environment. So here I just want Bocad Tower to be activated. So US English Tower, apply. Of course, to have access to this US Imperial option, you need to install the software with both metric and US Imperial settings, of course, or configuration, I could say. So if that is missing, you would have to launch the installer again and activate that environment as well. Once that is done, we will launch the software. And of course, there's a few things we have to change. So let's just make a dummy project. So I'm still in projects 2026, even though we've already changed that in the setup. This is simply because there is still something hanging, some of the settings hanging around from the original client. So we have to go to File Management and confirm again projects 2026I. If now here we can see that we are okay. So I'll just say we'll start a dummy project, test IMP1. This little globe has also appeared, whereby we can say I want to work in feet inch. We only have to do this the first time. What type of input we will go for. I'll just take the first one, and the next option will also be profile selection. We need the feet inch, or to say the imperial profile selection. Okay, we'll start this job. And obviously the software will pick up the settings from the original client. So all of this has been set up in a metric environment originally. So all the values we'll see in the boxes are simply the metric values converted into imperial. It's unlikely that these will be round values. So I would recommend having some more suitable, let's say, sizes for an imperial environment. So this, for example, we have 1 foot 7 inches and a bit. I would say that will become 20 inches or 1 foot 8 inches, such as this. The values will be a bit rounder than it originally was. And over here for the height, I'll just put the double values, so 40 inches. Okay. This is also where we will see again the depth, not a round value, so we'll round that to 6 inches, 6 inches, and the scale as well. We have 1/15, the closest would be 1/16, or 3/4 in the imperial sizes. There we go. And one of the next things we will have to change are things like here, the grid sizes, dimensions, and a couple of other things. That can be found on the general, units, text height. If you're already used to the metric text heights, I would not change this. And also the profile info, perhaps this time we want to get it in feet inches. If you've only worked ever in an imperial environment, okay, there you can change this to feet inches, but if you're already used to metric text size, I would not change that. Just keep it as it is in centimeters, since your references will remain the same. Automatic representation, we will set that feet inches, feet inches, feet inches for all of these. Slope, feet inches. Level designations, the weights, depending on where the factory is sitting. So if the factory is in the US, then maybe you want to see pounds. If the factory is still in, say, Canada or Mexico, for example, perhaps there you want to keep the weights in kilos. That's really up to you. Area, same story. Whether you want square feet, square meters, geometric data, and a couple of other things. I usually round everything to 1/16 of an inch. And the input, so you can have large fractions, small fractions, with, without inch, feet symbol, with leading zero, and so on. There's various ways to set all of this up. I like to see the smaller fractions with the feet and inch symbols. So dimension bold, I'll set all of this. Then dimensioning bold, same story. The slope though, I want all of that in inches only. So I'll keep that to inches. Level designation, type 4 as well. Okay for this. And the interactive, meaning all the 2D functions. What do we want as default? We want, of course, exactly the same thing. Feet inches, feet inches, feet inches everywhere. 16th, 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 all the way through. And the same type of input and representation. If now you want to tweak the way imperial formats are displayed or interpreted, then you can still go through here. So you can set for the feet leading zero. Do you need symbol? Yes, no. Do you need a separator? Leading symbol or leading zero for inches. Do you need a symbol? And there then also, do you need small, large fractions or even decimals? Okay. I refresh my view. It's still in metric. So let's see the grid designations. Designation. Here also, maybe you want to say, well, we want the dimensions stepped evading. The distance, that doesn't matter too much. Just leave it as it was. And now I can see that all my dimensions are imperial. If I go to dimensions, they're also maybe set feet inches as a default. Maybe set also the way it has to be displayed. We kept the text height in metric, so you still see the sizes you're used to. And just to check if everything is all right, this is the way it's displayed. If now, just to give you a little example, we change the type of display, this is what it would look like. Here it doesn't change so much, but if we're getting, say, this one, for example, then the value will be expressed in inches only without symbol. And there's various ways like this to represent dimensions. I'll go back to number 4. Take some random values, and this is what we will get. So here, for example, I have the leading zero switched on. As you're going along through the software, there might be other values that have been rounded from the original value. Just set them to something, to a round value, something that makes a bit more sense in an imperial environment. And little by little, you go through these boxes to set up your client. Each time you do make changes to your client, please just go with a new project. So shut down the software, start a new project, do the changes you want to have, save your project, and then only you save, load the path, and save everything back into your client. Like this, it will be cleaner than doing and changing things on the fly. There might be a few other things you might have to change. First of all are the profiles. Depending if you already have a custom catalog in your client or not, you might still have access. As you can see here, I still have access to my original catalog, which is metric in this case. Although I seem to have also imperial sizes with me. You see here from the list, it's showing me the list of available profiles from the imperial environment. But as I can see from the representation, it's still showing me an L150 or an L100 by 10, which are metric. If those are what you need, just keep going, but it's likely that you need also imperial sizes, imperial profile sizes. What do we have to do then? First of all, close this job, go back to the client. So we have our client 2026 IMP profile folder. I can see that I have a lot of files in here, all these custom bolts and custom profiles, more suited for a metric environment. I would just rename the whole folder .met, for example, and make a new folder called profile. Start Bocad up again, and this time it will pick from the profile folder, which is empty. So it will show me whatever is by default in the release. As I said, when we make changes to client, always safer or better to just start a new dummy job. I see my round values I modified earlier are set by default. My grid is also represented in a better way. Here also I have my round values. And then I can go to profile. See, for example, now an L150 by 10 is not allowed. But if I say I need an angle of 4 by 4 by a quarter, for example, that one should be available, since now we're picking from the imperial database, which is here. And you'll find all your W sections, your angles, plates, obviously. Speaking of plates, whenever we go to gratings, you might notice a couple of changes. In here, of course, we see the North American suppliers, or some of the North American suppliers. So those you will be able to choose from. And same thing goes with bolts. M16 was our default. That's not what we're getting. Of course, in an imperial environment, I have here hex bolts, heavy hex bolts, structural bolts. So for example, I want to take one of the structural bolts, say for example, this one here. And we need HB58. There at least we'll get our typical imperial bolt. Again, okay, save that as your default, and you maybe want to do the same thing with exchange bolts. Have there something that is more suitable for an imperial environment. So I'll take that very same one, and I'll just say HB58 or SBS for structural bolt 58, and at least have this as a default. Same thing goes with the welds. You might have something else than AWS as a default. Just make sure you have AWS and whatever is your preferred weld. Couple of things. Capture range, maybe 1/16 of an inch as a default. Okay. And once again, Since now members, perhaps plates as well. Oh, there we go. Material is not available. Indeed, I have a Canadian material available here as a default. So maybe here you want, for example, A36 as a default. And that's when I noticed that for some reason, the material is not available. Could be, it's still local in my client. And for that again, let's make the required change. Extras general, model, members, materials. So instead of swapping files manually, I would just say load from Bocad. And this is where we'll see all the North American steel grades. If you have something in your client you want to take over, just do load from client again. And if you say, for example, yes, but I need these materials I'm used to, copy them, load from Bocad, and you paste them at the bottom of the list. Do that again. Paste them at the bottom of the list, and you now overwrite whatever is in your client. Okay, member, profile. Now I have no warning, I just see a big plate like this because it's 10, meaning 10 inches. Let's say, for example, we say, well, our default should be 3/8 and the expansion should be an inch instead of 63/64. And once more, save, and save all these defaults in the client. Lastly, depending on what package of Bocad you're working with, here I'm showing Bocad Tower. So Bocad Tower also consists of the use of lots of macros, automated tools. There again, it could very well be that you have a lot of things saved as default in your client. So all things that are set up with default metric sizes. Say, for example, here again, this angle, leg, metric size, metric bolts, and so on. The easiest thing you could go for, just load standard, and you just pick up the default from the standard release. This will point to the US environment, and you will probably already then have a much better default than you used to have from what you took over from your metric client. If you want, you override this again once more in your client to have all these imperial defaults for the next project or the next time you use that function. So those are the things you would have to change once, luckily, when moving from a metric environment to an imperial environment for the first time, but remaining or keeping, I should say, your original client settings. So your title blocks, drawing settings, numbering settings, all of those things will not be affected because that is how it has been set up for your company, for the factories you work with. If there's anything else, just please let us know. You know how to reach us. Just send a little email to support if there's other topics of this transition anyway that are not clear.